The idea for the Break It Down board came from me trying to understand when something had happened when I wasn't with my son. So he was at school and a situation had happened and he'd come home and was then dysregulated at home because he, like a lot of children with FASD, holds in his until he feels comfortable. And he came home one particular day and we were trying to work out what had happened, when it had happened within the school day, because I think that's really important to understand. So what lesson it's in, whether it's the end of the day, after lunch, those sorts of questions were what we were working through. And we found when the lesson where it had originated from, and then we were trying to work out what had made him feel uncomfortable. And so I was thinking, was it sensory? Is it the work he was doing? And it turns out that the teacher was talking too much. And I actually wouldn't have even have thought about that, to be honest. So it wasn't giving him processing time to be able to do what she was asking before she was talking again. Sorry. And then, so it's really hard. It was, even though we do this quite often, it's quite difficult to do without having a visual. So because I use lots of visuals in other ways, I thought it'd be really good if there was a visual way we could do this. So then we can work out where the problem starts, and then also relate that to how that relates to his FASD. So what's causing that? So like whether it's a sensory need, a brain-based issue, and things like that, so that if he understands his FASD going forward, then that will really help going into adulthood, but then also how he can help himself in those situations, so that he can maybe do a sensory activity or explain to the person what it is he needs. So in this case, it would be about explaining to that TA that he needs processing time. So in that moment in time, he might use his timeout card to go out of the classroom for a minute, but then having worked it out with me, I can then contact the school and say to the TA that they need to leave time for him to process what they're saying. So and then the next stage might be that he's able to do that himself. And then the idea is that by doing this lots and lots and lots, that, you know, he might be able to then do some of this without the board. It might be sometimes when things are really, really difficult, you need to get the board back out again and do it again, or you continue using the board because that's the way they explain it well. So it's kind of where the idea sort of started. And then once you get everybody on board, it really develops and took off. And I think it's going to be amazing, to be honest. So we use lots of different types of visuals, but when we used the R board, it really, really worked. So when I had this idea, I then went to Neil at our boards and we started to think about how we could put this into a board, and then we went from there. I think visuals are brilliant because they really, really help. But I think the idea for me is some visuals you might need to keep using for a very long time or forever. But the whole point to me is that the visuals can then teach them to do something so they can do it without the visuals. And I think that's the key. So even though we have lots of visuals everywhere, we don't always use them all the time. So I think that, because I think people think I've got visuals everywhere and we're inundated with visuals, but depending on what you're doing depends on what visuals you're using. So now it's like the board, what the weekly timetable one, we go in and out of that. It's always there and he always sees it, but the amount of input that goes into it goes up and down. So if he's really anxious, we'd use it more, but when he's not, it's just there. So it does its job without us having to do much to it, if you get what I mean.
So my idea that I had that I gave to Sandra was the Break It Down board, So I found this personally really interesting, and obviously I have a son who's 20 who was diagnosed with autism just before he was 18, and I knew the whole way through. We've always had this communication that we would always break things down, and I found it helped me as well. So what inspired me, obviously, to let Sandra know about this break it down thing, what it just means, and I use it myself now. If someone's talking to me in, I suppose, adult talk, and something that I don't quite understand their terminology, what they mean, I will always say, can you break that down? And it will have to be broken down to where I would understand it, to a level where a child would understand it, and in simple terms, you know, really simplifying things, don't make anything complicated, and it makes it just a bit easier, because understanding that our brains are slightly complex, that we don't get everything firsthand. We will, as I've learned, we will blag our way through so much that we do sometimes get it just to feel that we can fit in, or that we're not different. But as I've learned as a, you know, an adult, it's never easy pretending that you get what they're saying. So even working, I will make sure that they're aware that I don't quite understand what they mean, or if they can break it down, what I've actually got to do. So that is always a key part to me, and I think by putting it on a board where children are praised if they are doing something good, or they can express how they're feeling, and in their way of learning can pass it to their carers, and they can understand what they mean. So it's been a big thing in our household. So yeah, and I was, very pleased when Sandra remembered and she wanted to put that on. So yeah, it's a big thing for me. I hope you enjoy this little video, and anything else I can do, no worries. Thank you. Bye.